All right, so get this. You could solve a murder decades old with a coffee cup.
Yeah, wild, right? That's exactly what happened in this Lindy Sue Biechler case.
It is absolutely wild.
And that's what we're going to deep dive into today.
Yeah, today we're diving deep into the Lindy Sue Biechler case.
It's fascinating. It's got all these twists and turns, and we finally got justice after like 50 years.
Almost 50 years.
Crazy.
Yeah, crazy.
Persistence pays off.
Yeah, and I think what's really cool about this case is like this new technology came out.
Yeah.
That kind of blew the case wide open, and so we're gonna talk about that today.
Totally. And I think that's what's really captivating about this is just like for years, investigators were hitting all these dead ends, and all of a sudden, boom.
It's like a brand new tool.
A brand new tool. Yeah, genealogy comes in, and the whole game changes.
The whole game changes,
It's amazing.
So let's back up for a second. December 1975, a 19-year-old newlywed, Lindy Sue Biechler, is murdered in her apartment in Pennsylvania.
Yeah.
Tragically, yeah.
Tragically murdered.
And the details are pretty gruesome, like 19 stab wounds, a kitchen knife left in her neck.
A sign of a struggle?
A sign of a struggle. Like, it's a scary scene, so,
Yeah, it really shook the community. Like, you can imagine this happening.
Of course.
And they're determined to find out, like, who did this.
Right.
Like, who could commit such a horrible act?
Yeah, so the investigators, they're on the case, right? They interview hundreds of people.
Hundreds of people. They gather evidence meticulously.
But they hit a wall.
Yeah, they hit a wall.
The case goes cold.
And the case goes cold. And that's, I mean, just that thought.
I can't imagine.
The frustration, the agony of not knowing,
Yeah.
Especially for Lindy Sue's family.
Of course.
It wasn't just a case file.
Oh,
This was their life. Their life turned upside down.
Totally.
Decades pass without answers, but they never gave up hope.
It's heartbreaking to think about that. Like, years of not knowing who took her from them.
Yeah, absolutely.
But then in 2019, this thing called genealogy comes into the picture.
Right.
And when I first heard about this, I thought it was science fiction.
Yeah, yeah.
So how does this DNA time machine actually work?
Yeah, so it all starts with DNA, right? Extracted from the crime scene evidence, just like traditional DNA profiling.
Okay.
But instead of looking for an exact match in a criminal database, they upload this profile to public databases, the kind that people use to trace their ancestry.
Wait, so you're telling me you can build an entire family tree just from a tiny little sample of DNA?
That's exactly what it is. Yeah, it's like piecing together this giant, incredibly complex puzzle.
Wow.
By identifying these shared DNA segments, we can trace lineages back, like generations, connecting the dots between distant relatives.
That's crazy.
And in Lindy Sue's case, it led to a suspect that no one had even considered, David Sinopoli.
Okay, David Sinopoli, so he had lived near Lindy Sue at the time.
He had.
But was never on the radar.
Never on the radar at all.
Oh.
He just kind of slipped through the cracks.
So this is a huge, plot twist.
It is a plot twist, a complete plot twist.
I mean, it's amazing how this technology can just uncover these connections that would have been impossible to find.
Yeah.
But finding his name in a database, that was just the beginning, right?
Absolutely. That's just the beginning. I mean, that doesn't prove anything. That just gives you a name.
Okay.
You need more than that.
So what did they do? How did they prove that he was involved?
So this is where the ingenuity of the investigators comes in.
Okay.
They came up with this brilliant, almost sneaky plan to obtain Sinopoli's DNA without him knowing.
Sneaky.
Right. So they staked him out at an airport, and they waited for him to discard a coffee cup.
A coffee cup caper?
A coffee cup caper, exactly.
I can't make this stuff up.
It's like something out of a movie, right?
Yeah.
And I bet you the tension was so high.
Oh, I bet.
While they waited for the lab results.
What if it didn't match?
Right, exactly. What if it didn't match?
Back to square one.
Back to square one. But the DNA from that discarded coffee cup matched the semen sample from 1975.
Get out of here.
With an astronomical probability of 1 in 10 trillion.
Wow.
It was basically irrefutable proof of Sinopoli's involvement.
Yes. That's incredible.
I know that's some mind-blowing science right there.
That is mind-blowing.
Yeah.
So did they arrest him right then and there?
Well, not quite. They needed to build a solid case.
Okay.
So they conduct thorough surveillance, background checks, all that stuff.
Right.
It wasn't until July of 2022, a staggering 47 years after the crime that they finally had enough to arrest Sinopoli.
There must have been an unbelievable moment for Lindy Sue's family.
Absolutely. Can you imagine that?
After all those years of waiting and wondering.
Justice is finally being served.
Yeah, and in the next part of our deep dive, we'll explore the impact of this arrest and all the legal stuff that went down after this.
Sounds good. Welcome back to our deep dive into the Lindy Sue Biechler case.
It's amazing, really, how like a coffee cup and some good detective work
Yeah.
could unlock a mystery that had been like unsolved for nearly 50 years.
It is. It's truly remarkable.
And we were talking about genetic genealogy.
Right.
And, it's one thing to hear about it, like in the abstract.
Right.
But when you see it in action,
Yeah.
it's hard to wrap your head around it.
Yeah, absolutely.
What stands out to you about how it was used in this case?
I think that the thing that's truly remarkable here is how C.C. Moore, the genetic genealogist who worked on this, combined like cutting-edge science with just good old-fashioned detective work.
Yeah.
It wasn't just like tracing DNA through databases.
Right.
It was understanding historical migration patterns,
Wow.
digging through archives, connecting these seemingly like totally unrelated pieces of information.
She was like a DNA detective, ain't he a history sleuth?
Exactly.
Right.
Like 2 for 1.
Earlier, you mentioned that she traced Sinopoli's ancestry all the way back to Gasparina, Italy.
Yeah.
How did she even, begin to make that connection?
It involved meticulously combing through Ellis Island records, World War II draft cards, even the membership roster of like a local Italian-American club.
Wow.
It's mind-boggling to think about the amount of information she had to sift through.
Yeah, just to, connect a town in Italy to a murder in Pennsylvania decades later.
Decades later, I know, it's crazy.
It makes you wonder how many other cold cases out there could be solved with this technology.
Oh, countless. I mean,
There must be so many families out there just still waiting for answers.
yeah, it's truly a game changer for cold cases. I mean, C.C. Moore, just groundbreaking work,
It's incredible.
has already helped solve numerous other cases,
Wow.
bringing a sense of closure and justice to families who had long given up hope.
It's hopeful, but it's also a little bit
Yeah.
unsettling, Like, we have this power now, but where do we draw the line between public safety and personal privacy when it comes to our DNA?
That's a crucial point. I mean, the use of genetic genealogy in criminal investigations, it does raise some complex ethical considerations.
Right.
We need to be mindful of those implications.
Yeah.
And have these open conversations about how to use this technology responsibly.
So, for example, if someone uploads their DNA to a genealogy website, are they consenting to having that information used in a criminal investigation?
Right. And what about their relatives?
Yeah.
Who haven't even taken a DNA test?
Yeah, it seems like a really gray area.
You're right. It is a very gray area and one that's being fiercely debated right now. I mean, when you upload your DNA to a public genealogy database,
Yeah.
you're not just revealing information about yourself,
Yeah.
you're also revealing information about your family members
Right.
who may not have consented to having that information shared.
So even if you're comfortable with it, your third cousin, twice removed, might not be thrilled about having their DNA potentially linked to a crime scene.
Right, exactly.
And as this technology becomes more widely used, those concerns are only going to grow.
Precisely. And it's not just a theoretical debate either. I
Sure.
mean, there have already been cases where the use of genetic genealogy has sparked controversy.
Yeah.
Remember the Golden State Killer case?
Yeah, vaguely.
From a few years back?
Yeah.
So investigators used a genealogy database to identify the suspect.
Right.
But it sparked this huge debate
Oh, yeah.
about the ethical implications of using this technology without, explicit consent from the individuals whose DNA was in that database.
Yeah, it feels like the legal and ethical frameworks are still trying to catch up
Absolutely.
to the science.
Yeah, the science is moving so fast.
And like you said, these debates are only going to intensify
Absolutely.
as genetic genealogy becomes more common.
Sure.
It feels like we're at a crossroads,
Yeah.
The Lindy Sue Biechler case is a powerful example of how this technology can bring justice.
Yeah.
But it also raises some big questions about the future.
Right. And in the final part of our deep dive, we're going to zoom out and explore those bigger questions.
Yeah.
What other cold cases might be solved?
Yeah.
How will this technology shape our understanding of privacy and justice?
I'm ready.
In the digital age, stay tuned.
We've been talking about Lindy Sue Biechler's case and how they used genetic genealogy to finally solve it. It's amazing to think after, what, almost 50 years, all those other cold cases out there could get that same break. Do you think this is like a major turning point in how we deal with these unsolved mysteries?
Oh, I absolutely think so. The Lindy Sue Biechler case, I mean, it's a real watershed moment. We're like entering a new era of forensics, you know?
Yeah.
Think about it. Every unsolved case, every John or Jane Doe could get a second look with this.
That's kind of mind-blowing.
It is. It's exciting and maybe even a little scary to think what's possible now.
Yeah, it's like something out of a TV show. All of a sudden,
Right.
cold cases are heating up, investigators are dusting off old files, everyone's checking those DNA databases.
Exactly. And it's not just the old cases either. Think about how this changes investigations that are happening right now.
Yeah, that's true.
I mean, if police can use genetic genealogy all the time, they could be finding suspects way faster, maybe even in days or hours.
Wow, instead of waiting decades for something to happen.
Exactly.
But that brings up some tough questions, right?
Hmm.
Like, how far do we go for justice? And what about everyone's privacy?
Yeah, for sure. It's a tough balance. I mean, on one hand, it's a huge advantage for the police, right?
Right.
Criminals would think twice, knowing even a distant relative's DNA could point back to them.
Right.
But it also makes you wonder about all this genetic surveillance and could people misuse this technology?
Absolutely. And it's not just the people who put their DNA out there on purpose. What about their family who never agreed to any of this? It seems like we really need some clear rules, some laws, to make sure all of this is used fairly and ethically.
You're absolutely right. We need to talk about this openly and honestly. What are the consequences of this technology? How do we balance giving police these tools with protecting everyone's rights?
And it can't just be scientists and politicians making these decisions.
Yeah, no, not at
The
all.
public needs to be part of this too.
Definitely. Everyone needs to be involved.
It's like technology is changing faster than we can even understand what it all means, the good and the bad.
Yeah, that's true.
But Lindy Sue's case, it really shows why these conversations are so important.
Absolutely.
We see this amazing potential for justice,
Right.
but we also see these ethical problems we can't ignore.
You've got it.
Every new scientific thing has those two sides.
Exactly. Every advancement comes with opportunities and with challenges.
And we have to be careful with these new tools.
We do.
Make sure they're used for good, for fairness, and that everyone's rights are protected.
Well said.
This deep dive has been quite a journey, right? We started with a sad story in a small town, and now we're talking about the latest science. Big ethical questions about genetic genealogy. It's amazing how one case can lead to so much intrigue and discovery and debate.
It really is. And this is just the beginning. This technology is only going to get more advanced, so we have to stay involved, keep asking those tough questions, and demand transparency so that we know it's being used for the right reasons.
Couldn't agree more. If you want to know more about Lindy Sue Biechler's case, check out whokilledlindybiechler.com.
Yeah.
And as always, thanks for joining us on the deep dive. Keep those brains buzzing.